Hi, I'm Andrew Martin. I am the group publisher at Disruptive Tech News, and I'm really pleased that today I've got with me Nathan Stevens, who is the Senior Director of Solutions Consulting at Snow Software, the technology and intelligence company. Interested in the chat that I'm going to have because when I speak to technology professionals and IT professionals, particularly those ones that are going through transformation and modernization, very often when I have those chats with them, they do tell me that as they start to move away from their legacy IT, they find a lot of old IT that they're paying for that they don't actually use. And that problem actually doesn't go away as you modernize because your IT gets more distributed, and that's where Snow Software is helping a lot of clients. So I want to dive straight in, Nathan, and actually ask you if you could just tell us, in your words, your interpretation, what is technology intelligence and how does Snow Software help your clients with that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's something that here at Snow, we're finding a segment in the market now with technology intelligence. Now, if you think about existing technology stacks out there today, your laptops, desktops in data centers, that's evolved tremendously with the explosion of SaaS and cloud-based products. Technology intelligence really is providing the intelligence layer across that data. So we consume and we recognize so many different data points from all of these different devices, the software that's installed on them, the entitlements that you will own, the subscriptions that you own through a variety of different platforms. Now, it's very hard to make sense of all of this information just on its own. This is where Snow comes in and adds that layer across all of that data through our normalization, through enhancing of the data, and make it easy to consume to get outcomes with the use of that data. This is really where technology intelligence comes into play. Now, I know in terms of a number of different factors today, a different lens can be taken to that intelligence. Now, whether that's from the more traditional Snow lens of software asset management and your contracts and entitlements, what's licensed, what's compliant and non-compliant. And then we start to look at the emerging areas in terms of around the SaaS. So you're never non-compliant in the world of SaaS. We can definitely have people that are using subscriptions that they're not entitled to. They're free for personal use, but maybe not, from in a commercial sense, a business sense, you need to pay for a license. And then when we start to look into other areas as well, particularly around, public cloud, hybrid cloud, and even down to containers as well. So these are the areas that Snow is really helping organizations get intelligence about them, understand them from a cost optimization perspective. So how do we manage the revenue, the cash flow around those assets that we own and manage? And also as well, if I start to look at this from an operational efficiency perspective, can we do the same amount of work and get the same outcomes with a tenth of the time? 90% reduction in manual effort involved in trying to collate and manage that data. And as well as, touching on a number of other key areas, with the explosion of different security breaches around the world today, in particularly in Australia in the last year as well. What we've seen there is having that lens into that data in terms of what are the, makes, models, versions, the security posture of those assets and providing a view of that for different teams within the organization. So traditionally where we may have focused on that sort of IT asset management space, today really is about ensuring that all stakeholders within the business have access to intelligent data around the technology assets that they already own and making that process that much easier.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Nathan. I'm particularly drawn to what you said about Snow defining a segment in the market, because I think this is an area that people kind of have talked about for years, but it's got to a point where I think because of the complexity of people's IT, that they really do need this technology intelligence in order to really keep a grip of such dispersed IT that they have to manage. So thinking about that, when you look at this space that you're developing, could you share with us maybe some of the trends and some of the spending habits that you're seeing?
Yeah, so I touched on a probably a couple of those areas when talking about technology intelligence. But I think the key thing to really focus in on in this area is to look at two key things. What we're seeing is an increase in spend across the SaaS and public cloud space. I think public cloud is outstripping, both SaaS and traditional software by a factor of greater than 300% from one of the last statistics that I read. This is the trend that is continuing to rise, especially across the Asian market as well, as we're seeing a lot more focus on being cloud first, with the emergence of a number of data centers emerging out of the Microsofts and the AWSs of the world. So what we're seeing now is, data sovereignty has become less of an issue. The spend has increased in those particular domains. And then as organizations start to also adopt SaaS-based applications, and what we're seeing is an absolute increase in the number of SaaS products people are using today. Now, a year ago, 2 years ago, I would have confidently stood here and told you only 236 applications discovered in one of our customers was a really high number. Today, we're talking 600-700 different SaaS-based applications people are using and consuming within their organizations, without a view on in terms of what the actual spend or subscription requirement that exists for those products. Now, the spending habits are matching those. We've really gone from that in a traditional sort of CapEx model into this OpEx model, whether that's monthly or annual spend. And organizations need to factor that in terms of their spending habits as well. So where we start to see more adoption of the Microsoft 365s, Adobe Creative Cloud, the Azures, the AWSs, we need to ensure that the visibility in terms of that spend is also tracked. You're not going to get hit by a bill at a renewal time anymore. You're going to get hit by the bill on the month or each year in terms of you've already consumed it, now you have to pay for it. Now, there's little to negotiate around that sort of outcome now when it's an after-the-fact billing cycle. So proactively managing, the spend, the consumption of those services on a daily basis is absolutely critical now. And organizations need technology out there that can support that. And, this is where with what we spoke about in terms of technology intelligence across all of these areas, monitoring this on a daily basis to see those trends and anomalies that do pop up in those profiles is key to making sure that is a success for your organization today.
Yeah, it's interesting what you were saying about this, adoption of SaaS and public cloud and the rate at which you're seeing it pick up in Asia. So with that in mind, I wondered if we could just delve a little bit deeper and look into maybe some of the specific things that Snow Software is actually able to do to help people when it comes to managing this explosion of SaaS and cloud.
Yeah, so really diving in now to the Snow platform, and we have our brand new platform. It's called Snow Atlas. It's been around now a couple of years. I should stop referring to it as brand new now, but really this platform has been built from the ground up to really drive into the user experience of understanding your technology assets. Now, when we start to look at, decoupling cloud and SaaS, it becomes a little bit murky. Where is the fine line between, when people are talking about cloud versus SaaS? And really, the end goal is not really to decouple these things and treat them as individual domains or verticals within an organization. The question I really want to ask myself is, what is my Microsoft spend, or what is my Amazon spend across the board? Whether that's where 365, Azure, my SQL licensing, server licensing, you name it. It's really become, how do I optimize my spend across a vendor? How could I get visibility across that particular vendor and understand it as a whole? Now, this holistic approach is where the Snow Atlas platforms comes into play. I can get data from a number of different connectors, whether that's leveraging agent-based technology, agentless technology, connecting into those vendor portals, and consolidating and normalizing that information so that it's readable and understandable. For example, when I start to look at 365, I know that I can get my entitlement information from my 365 admin portal. But what we are lacking a lot of the time is the intelligence around how those things are being used. So am I using that particular application on the web browser, or the apps for enterprise on my desktop, and looking at combining different data sources across browser, agent, API-based usage to really get a single data point of, am I using this product? Combining that now with what am I using in the cloud? I can see what are the subscriptions that I've assigned to, how they're being consumed, and where I have the opportunity as well, based on recommendations, to save money across those areas. Now, the good thing about the Snow Atlas platform, it combines those areas with my traditional SAM, and also looking at the emerging technologies around containers. So what am I consuming my SQL Server licensing in Kubernetes containers? I get that in a single platform. I can report on that information, get the analysis and recommendations from that platform. And then I can also derive information into other BI solutions as well, like Power BI, then to federate and consume that at different levels, whether that's an executive dashboard view, or whether it's combining and federating data from multiple different sources to get a different perspective once again on that same data.
The way that you speak about the decoupling of SaaS and public cloud is very interesting. Having that perspective of being able to see spend across a single vendor, whether they're offering you SaaS, public cloud, or both together, seems to be a very unique way of looking at things, but also a sensible way of looking at things as well. But I wonder where you go from there, because it's one thing to be able to understand, but I guess the thing that really preoccupies most IT professionals is how can they achieve cost savings and drive down costs. And I'm just wondering, with what you do, are you able to help your clients to actually make cost savings? And if so, what's the kind of order of magnitude that you can achieve?
This is a really good question. We're in a unique position with Snow in terms of the way in which we discover those assets, which we mentioned just previously. Because of the depth of information that we capture, we can accurately meter and actually tell our customers exactly where they can save money across these services. Traditionally, if I'm looking at the actual entitlement, now what do I own versus what's out there? I can expect to save some money from eliminating my shelfware, knowing that certain people have left the organization. That's a good way to save money. That's just the starting point. That's just the tipping point of the potential savings that you can make as an organization, leveraging good quality data. But where we start to go down to that metering information across the browser, the APIs, the agents, the connectors into the Azure platforms, what we then see is that next level of optimization. Customers of ours are expecting up to 20 to 30% savings on their Microsoft contracts. This will differ customer to customer, depending on your investment in certain technologies. But where we find the biggest ROI in these areas is particularly with licensing and subscriptions that are used on a regular basis. So the Microsoft projects, the Visios, the Power BIs, these things are consumed, they're needed immediately, but very infrequently used. So we can actually tell you whether or not that you're actually using that from a variety of different data sources. Then when we move into the cloud space as well, and having that same lens on that data in terms of what are the recommendations in terms of what's being consumed against those subscriptions. Do I have a compute instance running on Azure that's, the developer has gone out and bought the Ferrari, but all they really needed was the Toyota to get from A to B. So what we're seeing is that we can provide those recommendations across that estate to actually then reduce those sizes. And especially when we start to get into multi-cloud as well, where, the inbuilt tools from the Azures and AWSs are okay, they're good enough on a single cloud, but you spread that across multiple clouds, understanding the savings plans and reserved instance recommendations, which is a huge and potential saving. Where we look at over 70 different recommendations across our product to understand really where can I save all that money? Do I need to look at underutilized resources or disconnected resources? Have I got snapshots that I've sat there for the last 3-4 years that are just, every dollar counts at the end of the day. There might be a small figure per month, but over years, these things add up. Now, that's the key for us in terms of cloud is, a previous cloud environment that may not be managed. I'm not going to say mismanaged because things are growing in terms of, the maturity around FinOps. With a solid FinOps practice supported by, strong tooling like Snow, we're talking in the realm of up to, once again, 20 to 30% saving across your Azure bill. If you think about this in terms of, at the smaller end, $1 million per year spent on your cloud providers, you can save anywhere up to 200 to 300 grand just on implementing really solid practices around analyzing what's actually needed, proactively keeping on top of those bills, and ensuring that you're taking action against those recommendations as well, which is at the end of the day the most critical thing. We will highlight these recommendations and savings. We have some technology that can help automate a lot of these recommendations as well. But the key is removing that from the business, whether that's a hard saving at the end of the day on your subscription, whether you're avoiding cost or really driving efficiencies within the business. Now, we can help in all of these different areas, and our goal is to make sure that we back the independent research that's gone into Snow and really get that ROI from an investment in the Snow technology down to less than 6 months. And we're confident that we can achieve that.
What a great way to wrap up that statement about getting an ROI on your Snow investment in about 6 months really is quite powerful, because that's ultimately what it's all about, being able to use technology intelligence to drive down costs and drive down efficiencies. And whilst that was something that people might play at before, I think in today's distributed SaaS and cloud-based environments, it's really dangerous not to have the tools to keep track of what you're consuming and what you're spending, because it can get out of hand so quickly. And I think what Nathan's done is really explained how their technology in that segment they're creating of technology intelligence is really helping in that area. And if you want to find out more about Snow, we have lots of other content and articles about them on Disruptive Tech News. But with that, I'd just like to thank Nathan one more time for his time with us today, and thank you for watching.